People think living alone as you get older is all doom and gloom, like you're just sitting in a recliner, staring at the wall, waiting for the phone to ring. But let me tell you, it's a lot more interesting than that. There are challenges, sure, but there are also these little surprises that nobody warns you about. Some of them are funny, some are tough, and some are downright eye-opening. Today, I want to share 10 of those truths with you. The real stuff about what it's like when the house is quiet, the fridge is yours, and the thermostat wars are finally over. Stick around, because I promise you're going to nod your head, laugh a little, and maybe even rethink what living solo later in life really means. Number 1. Your house becomes your mirror. Here's something I've noticed. When you live alone, your house stops being just a place you sleep in. It starts reflecting you in ways you never imagined. It's like your home becomes your portrait, painted in real time. Think about it. If you walk into your living room and it looks cozy, the chairs are arranged just the way you like, there's a book open on the side table, maybe the smell of last night's stew still lingers. That's you smiling back at yourself. That's your spirit stamped all over the place. But if you let things slide, dirty dishes piling up, newspapers spread across the couch, dust dancing around like it's auditioning for Dancing with the Stars, you feel it in your bones. The mess gets into your head. I had a friend named Walter who used to joke that his laundry pile wasn't just clothes, it was evidence of procrastination in its purest form. He said every time he walked past it, it whispered, "Do better." Here's the truth. When you live alone, your house talks back. And it doesn't whisper to anyone else but you. But here's the fun part. You get to choose the conversation. One woman said she keeps fresh flowers in her kitchen every week. Not because anyone's coming over, but because she deserves to walk into beauty. Another man rearranges his living room every couple of months just for fun. "I'm dating my furniture," he laughed. "Keeps things interesting." So yeah, your house becomes your mirror. But it's not just about keeping it clean. It's about shaping an environment that tells you every day, you matter. You deserve this space. 2. Silence can be both a friend and a stranger. Now let's talk about silence. Oh boy. Silence is a character all on its own when you live alone. Some days, it feels like your best friend. You sit in your chair with your morning coffee, the world outside is still, and you think this is peace. There's no one nagging, no TV blasting, no phone ringing off the hook. Just you, the clock ticking, and maybe a bird outside telling its whole life story at 6 a.m. That kind of silence feels like a hug. But, and here's the kicker, on other days, silence turns into a stranger who won't leave your house. It just sits there, staring at you. You walk from room to room and it follows you like a shadow. You try turning on the TV, but it feels too loud. You sit down to eat, and the clink of the fork against the plate sounds like a reminder that no one's across from you. That silence isn't peace, it's weight. One woman said the silence after her husband died was so loud, she bought one of those talking Alexa devices just to break it up. She said Alexa's jokes were terrible, but at least she wasn't laughing alone. Another gentleman admitted he leaves the radio on in his garage 24/7, so when he walks in, he feels like he's entering someone else's life instead of an empty space. Personally, I've learned that silence isn't something to fight. It's something to dance with. Some days you let it hold you, other days you nudge it aside with music, a phone call, or even the sound of pots clanging in the kitchen. One senior said she reads her books out loud to herself, characters' voices and all. She laughed. "My neighbors probably think I've lost it, but it makes me happy." So yeah, silence can be both a friend and a stranger. But like any relationship, you figure out how to live with it. Sometimes you welcome it in, sometimes you play it a song, and sometimes you just sit together in the same room like two old folks who've known each other long enough not to need words. 3. Food becomes complicated, but can also be fun. Here's the thing about food when you're living alone. It stops being straightforward. Back when the house was full, meals were an event. You had people to cook for, to sit with, to argue over whether mashed potatoes should be lumpy or smooth. Now, sometimes it feels like you're cooking for an audience of one, and that audience doesn't clap. I'll be honest, I've had nights where dinner was a peanut butter sandwich eaten over the sink. Why dirty a plate? Who am I impressing? Other times I've stared at the fridge like it was a crystal ball, hoping it would magically tell me what to eat. Spoiler: it never does. But here's where it gets interesting. Once you get over the hump of why bother, food can actually turn into this little playground for joy. I know a woman, 74 years old, who started trying out exotic recipes after her husband passed. Thai curry one night, Moroccan stew the next. She laughed that half the time it looked like a failed science experiment, but she also said it made her feel alive again, like she was traveling without leaving her kitchen. And let's not forget the fun of eating exactly what you want, how you want. No one's giving you the side eye for having pancakes for dinner. No one's judging when you eat ice cream straight out of the carton while watching Jeopardy! I had a friend who swore by his secret single-man meals, like scrambled eggs mixed with whatever he could grab in the fridge. He called it culinary roulette. Sometimes delicious, sometimes, well, not so much. Cooking for yourself doesn't have to be sad or boring. It can be rebellion, creativity, or just plain comfort. And even when it's cereal for dinner, there's something quietly nice about knowing you get to choose and you get to enjoy it on your terms. And hey, if cooking a full meal ever feels like too much, I've pinned a link in the comments to a guide with over 50 simple soup recipes, each tailored to different health benefits. They're light, comforting, and easy on the stomach. Perfect for days when your appetite is low or when you just want food that leaves you feeling restored. Be sure to grab a copy. Alright, let's roll into the next point. 4. You realize just how much little things matter. When you're older and living alone, you start noticing life on a whole new frequency. The little things, the ones you used to brush past, suddenly become the heart of the day. I'll give you an example. A friend of mine, 79 years old, says her highlight every morning is that first sip of coffee. Not the whole cup, not the caffeine kick, just that first sip. She says she closes her eyes, takes it in slow, and thinks, well, I made it to another day. Simple, but powerful. Or take Frank, a widower I met at a senior center. He swears by his Sunday morning ritual of reading the paper on the porch, rain or shine. It's not the news I care about, he told me, it's the ritual. Makes me feel anchored. I think that's the beauty of living alone in later years. Small moments suddenly glow brighter. A phone call from your daughter, a neighbor leaving you half a pie. Even the mail arriving at the same time every day can feel like a little victory. When life slows down, you stop rushing past these things. And sometimes it's the silliest things that bring joy. I read about a woman who saves her favorite cookies for Friday nights, just to make Fridays feel like a celebration. Another man said watching the sunrise out his kitchen window had become his new church service. That image stuck with me. Holy light pouring in with no sermon but silence. You realize that happiness doesn't come in grand packages anymore. It comes in small, ordinary doses. And honestly, those are the best kind. They sneak up on you, they don't cost a dime, and they remind you that life, even when it feels quiet, is still very much alive. 5. Health becomes a full-time job and a comedy routine. You ever feel like your body turned into a part-time job without asking for your permission? I swear, once you hit a certain age, managing your health becomes as demanding as working in HR. You're constantly scheduling appointments, filling out forms, and dealing with complaints. Only now, the employees are your knees, your back, and your blood pressure. I've joked before that I need a personal assistant just to remind me what to take and when. Between the morning pills, the evening pills, the ones you take with food, and the ones you can't mix with grapefruit juice, It's like running a pharmacy in your own kitchen. I know a guy who actually labeled his pill organizer breakfast, lunch, dinner, and midnight snack just to make himself laugh. That's why having something to keep it all straight can be a real lifesaver. A senior-friendly digital planner, for example, takes the stress out of remembering meds, meals, and appointments, so you don't feel like you're juggling both a pharmacy and a calendar service in your own home. I've pinned a link in the comments if you want to check it out. It's one of those small tools that makes a big difference. It takes away the confusion and gives you back some breathing room. So instead of stressing over the details, you can actually focus on, well, enjoying life. And don't even get me started on doctor visits. There's always some new test, some new scan, or some new number you're supposed to keep track of. A woman said she's got more apps for her health on her phone than her teenage grandson does for games. She showed me her Fitbit, her blood pressure monitor, her step counter, and then she laughed and said, "Now if only one of these apps could fold my laundry." But here's the thing. Health doesn't have to feel like punishment. Yes, you're keeping track of stuff more than ever, but it can also give you a sense of control. One friend of mine actually turned her daily walks into a little game. She picks a new destination each week, a park bench, the corner store, even just a neighbor's garden down the road, and treats it like an adventure. She says her doctor calls it exercise. She calls it a field trip. And honestly, humor helps more than any vitamin. When your body creaks and groans like an old wooden ship, sometimes the only thing to do is laugh. One guy said he names his aches like pets. His hip is Charlie, his shoulder is Doris. He said, "At least this way, when I'm complaining, it sounds like I'm gossiping about friends instead of falling apart." So yes, health becomes a full-time job. But it's one you learn to manage with equal parts, discipline, stubbornness, and humor. Because the truth is, if you don't laugh about it, you'll cry. And laughter feels way better on the joints. 6. Independence becomes your superpower. Now this one's my favorite truth. Living alone teaches you a kind of independence you didn't even know you had, and I'll tell you it feels good. Think about it. When you're on your own, every little thing you accomplish becomes a quiet victory. Fixing a leaky faucet, figuring out how to order groceries online, or finally getting your printer to connect to the Wi-Fi. It's not just a task, it's a triumph. You feel like a superhero in slippers. I read about a widowed woman in her 80s who taught herself how to use YouTube videos to repair her dishwasher. She said, "Turns out YouTube is the husband I didn't know I needed." She wasn't just fixing the dishwasher, she was proving to herself that she could still figure things out. And that right there is priceless. There's a man I know, 77 years old, who decided he was tired of waiting for someone to drive him to church, so he signed up for Uber all by himself. First time, he pressed the wrong button and ended up at the mall instead. He laughed and said, "Well, God knows my heart, even if my GPS doesn't." But now? He goes everywhere he wants without depending on anyone. That's freedom. And let's not forget the small daily victories. Learning how to cook a new meal, setting up a Zoom call with your grandkids, even just managing your bills and knowing you've got it handled. It builds this quiet confidence that feels better at 75 than it ever did at 25. Because back then, you didn't appreciate it. Now, you know exactly what it means. The truth is, independence in later years isn't about proving yourself to others. It's about proving to yourself that you're still capable, still learning, still moving forward. Every time you solve a problem, no matter how small, it reminds you, I've still got it. And honestly, that's a superpower no cape could ever compete with. 7. Loneliness isn't what you think. Most people assume that if you're old and living alone, loneliness must be your constant companion. But that's not always true. Sometimes being alone is a relief, sometimes it's a challenge, and sometimes it's just neutral. Like background noise you forget is even there. Here's the twist. Loneliness doesn't only show up when the house is empty. I remember one man saying, "I felt lonelier in my marriage than I ever did after it ended." That hit me hard, because it's true. Being surrounded by people who don't see you, don't hear you, don't get you, that's a heavier kind of loneliness than sitting by yourself with a good book and a cat. Now, I won't sugarcoat it. There are moments when the quiet cuts deep. Birthdays with no one singing, holidays with an empty chair at the table, even just watching something funny on TV and realizing there's no one next to you to laugh with. It can sting. But those moments don't define the whole story. What makes the difference is connection, not constant company. A neighbor who checks in, a phone call that turns into a 2-hour conversation, even posting in an online group where strangers suddenly become friends. Those things can light up a week. One widowed woman shared how she keeps a standing call date with her sister every Sunday night. She said, "We gossip about nothing, but it fills the tank for the whole week." And sometimes, loneliness surprises you by turning into peace. I had a friend tell me that once he learned to stop chasing away the empty spaces, he realized they were filled with freedom. He could read until 3 a.m., nap in the middle of the day, or sing badly while cleaning the kitchen. Loneliness shifted into solitude, and solitude became strength. So no, loneliness isn't always what people think. It's not a permanent condition, it's a tide that comes in and goes out. Some days it pulls hard. Other days, it leaves behind seashells you didn't expect. 8. Money worries feel different when you're solo. Now let's talk about money. Oh, the joys of stretching a dollar until it squeaks. When you're older and living alone, money takes on a new shape. It's not just numbers on a page. It's your security, your comfort, your ability to breathe easy at night. I've heard people say, well, at least you only have yourself to provide for. And sure, in theory, that's true. But in reality, it's a juggling act. Groceries, utilities, rent or property taxes, medical bills. Oh, those medical bills. They don't care if you're cooking for one or just heating one room. The expenses don't shrink just because your household did. One woman said she started tracking every penny after her husband passed. At first, it scared her to see where the money went. But then she realized it gave her control. She even set up little challenges for herself, like spend under $10 on a week's worth of lunches. She laughed and said she's now the MacGyver of leftovers. And then there are the quirky habits we develop. A man once joked that he reuses his tea bags until they're just hot water with memories. Another woman admitted she has a stash of butter and toilet paper big enough to survive the apocalypse, because when you're living alone, running out of something essential feels like a bigger crisis than it should. But here's the deeper truth. Money worries feel different solo because there's no backup. No second income, no partner to share the load, no one to say, "Don't worry, we'll figure it out." You're the captain of the ship, even when the seas get rough. And that responsibility can feel heavy. Yet, there's a flip side. Managing your money alone can also feel oddly empowering. You get to decide what matters and where to cut back. You can skip the fancy clothes if you'd rather splurge on good coffee. You can cancel the cable if you'd rather pay for your gardening hobby. There's no debate, no compromise, just you calling the shots. And let's be real, there's a kind of pride in knowing you can make it work. A woman in her 70s said, "I may not have a lot, but every bill that gets paid, I know I did that. Me. By myself." That kind of independence feels better than any lottery ticket. So yes, money worries are different when you're living alone. They're real, and they can be tough. But they can also make you resourceful, creative, and proud of the fact that you're steering your own ship, even if sometimes it feels like it's held together with duct tape and prayer. 9. Your social circle shrinks, but deepens. Something funny happens with friendships as you get older and live alone. Your social circle doesn't just change, it slims down like an old pair of jeans after a good wash. You used to know 50 people you could call for a barbecue, but now, you've maybe got 3 people you can call when your car won't start. And honestly, those 3 mean more than the other 50 ever did. It's not about numbers anymore, it's about depth. I know a woman who used to have a calendar packed with events. Potlucks, church meetings, volunteer shifts, you name it. Now she says, "I don't need a crowd, I need a connection." She sees two friends regularly, and those conversations go deeper than years of casual chatter ever did. And online spaces have opened up a whole new world. Many seniors talk about how they found more genuine friendships through digital communities than through their own neighborhoods. One man said his weekly video chats with a group of fellow retirees across 3 different states have become the highlight of his week. He laughed, saying, "It's like having poker night without the smell of cigars." When you're living alone, you also start recognizing who's really there for you. The neighbor who brings in your trash bin without being asked. The friend who remembers your doctor's appointment and checks in afterward. Even the cashier who takes the time to ask, "How's your day going?" Those little gestures reveal the diamonds in your circle. And honestly, there's relief in letting go of shallow connections. You don't have the energy for drama, for gossip, for people who drain more than they give. You'd rather have 2 solid friends who will laugh with you until your stomach hurts than 10 acquaintances who only ask, "So, how's retirement?" So yes, the circle shrinks, but it gets tighter, stronger, and truer. And when you think about it, isn't that what we wanted all along? 10. You discover a new kind of freedom. Now, this truth might surprise people the most. Because yes, living alone as you age can feel hard, but it also comes with a kind of freedom that younger folks can't even imagine. For starters, you're the boss of your time. If you want to eat breakfast at 2 in the morning and nap at noon, who's stopping you? I knew a widower who ate dessert before dinner every night simply because he could. He said, "Life's too short to save pie for last." And you know what? He was right. There's also freedom in how you live. You can watch your shows without compromise, no one arguing about whether it's time for sports or soap operas. You can blast Elvis, Patsy Cline, or Sinatra while vacuuming, and no one's there to tell you to turn it down. You can keep the thermostat exactly where you want it, finally ending the decades-long war between too hot and too cold. But it's deeper than just those surface freedoms. Living alone teaches you that you don't have to measure your life by anyone else's yardstick anymore. You're free to rediscover parts of yourself that might have been buried under responsibilities for decades. Maybe it's painting, gardening, writing, or simply sitting outside at sunset and realizing you don't have to rush anywhere. I once read about a woman who took up dancing in her living room every night. Just her record player, and the joy of moving however she pleased. She said it made her feel 16 again. Another man turned his garage into a workshop and started building birdhouses. He wasn't selling them, he wasn't showing them off. He just liked seeing the birds enjoy them. That's the beauty of this kind of freedom. It's not loud, not flashy. It's simple, quiet, deeply personal, and it's powerful. Because after years of putting others first, after years of compromise, you get to say, "This life is mine, and I get to shape it however I want." And that, my friend, is the sweetest kind of freedom there is. So there you have it, 10 of the biggest truths about living alone as you get older. Some of them make you chuckle, some of them make you think, and a few might hit a little close to home. But here's the thing. Living solo isn't just about empty rooms. It's about discovering yourself all over again, on your own terms. And if you're out there doing this right now, you're not alone. Millions of us are figuring it out. One frozen dinner, one quiet evening, one unexpected laugh at a time. And don't forget, if keeping track of meds, meals, and appointments ever feels like you're auditioning for a circus act, take a breath. I've pinned a link in the comments to a senior-friendly digital planner that takes the stress out of staying organized. It's simple, works, and it gives you back more time for the good stuff, like laughing at life's little quirks and actually enjoying your day. If this video made you smile, nod, or think, do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe for more conversations just like this, and share it with someone who might need to hear they're not walking this road by themselves. Because in the end, living alone doesn't mean being lonely. It just means you finally get to live life your way. And that, my friend, is worth celebrating.